Can you talk about what are those elements that ought to be solved?
So this is the traditional pipeline, right? I'll just talk about the traditional pipeline. The core ASR, you need to have enough data to train for that. Data across districts, data across dialects, and so on and so forth. That goes to building that. From a business standpoint, your SLMs need to capture for that vertical, right? Enough knowledge bases that it can solve, right? Uh, Step back to earlier conversation, needs to have multilingual capabilities, right? It needs to have a fantastic denoiser because many environments in India are very noisy. Then turn taking is extraordinarily important because the way people speak in a large country like India with a huge population is very different depending on large city versus small city, Kerala versus Karnataka, Mumbai versus Delhi. So I think there are a lot of tech capabilities that you need to build, even beyond your core, I would say. So I distinguish it into two parts. One is the core technology or the core AI fundamental or foundational components. The second is the engineering piece, which is equally important. So our belief is that today all those problems are not solved. So unless you have and you solve them as best as you can using your own technology, you're not going to be able to service your customers. So just one point I'd like to say is, and that's why we are also rethinking the whole architecture itself, right? Like for example, we are trying to, as part of the India AI mission, we are building this S2S model, right? And that's extraordinarily important because, the Ajay side, it's always latency, reasoning, you don't want to compromise on many of these things, right? And then you need to reduce latency to a point, and also start looking at other things in our conversations, such as emotion in conversations, various other things which will really bring this whole, voice AI like a proper communication that you and I are making here, right? So there are a lot of unsolved problems which you need to solve using technologies and various other things. And we believe at this point, the capabilities of the global LLMs and the global companies are not there for many of these things. And there's also a business aspect that is very local, which those guys are not going to solve. So even the point that Mandeep was trying to make, there's a business component that is very Indianized and very Indian, which has to be solved, and which you need your own SLMs anyway.
When you're sitting in the investor's seat, my level of technical depth is very different from Ganesh's, right? But would love to understand or get it clarified from both Ajay and Ganesh that the way, at least from investor standpoint, the way we look at it, or the way at least I've tried to break down how to evaluate potential startups is along three categories. One, data. Second, compute capacity, and third, engineering, to marry these two. And one of the biggest challenges which I find with respect to solving for any kind of AI capability for India is just the availability of data. And whether that's multilingual data, whether it's tonality of data, whether it's capturing emotions, at the end of the day, it all boils down for me is whether you have access to the right amount and the right quality of data.
I think we're seeing that as the binding gap that lies between customers who are really successful with voice AI versus customers who have probably got the best tech that they're paid millions of dollars and still not able to get to the outcome that Ganesh is talking about. And because we sort of touched upon the India AI stack, I think what I keep telling my team, we're trying to build what we will need for the India AI stack from when I say we, Salesforce as a landscape, is if you can solve for a noisy vegetable market in Bangalore with 3 languages being spoken at once, you build a product that can work anywhere across the world. And that is the ultimate stress test, right? And typically that is not being the lens of thought when a global company is building for San Francisco or Europe being the only kind of a lens. And one of the other parities, Mandeep, that you brought about is like, there is always that constant signaling of companies which have their very strong engineering teams that have been building products for themselves, their back-end IT and other IT operations. Now they've been given AI operations as in charge, and they say, now given a $1 million plus budget, do we DIY or do we go and buy something?